Okay, so good morning, my students, my future nurses. So for today, we are going to start our second topic on community health nursing, and just to have a short recap of what you have learned, what you have read in your first topic. So you talked about, you presented or briefly discuss about what is a community, what is healthy community, what are the components of a healthy community, characteristics of a healthy community. So the next topic is also in line with that topic. Okay, so as it deals with some very important information or data in order to monitor, to evaluate, or to assess the status of a healthy community. And for this video lecture, we are going to discuss about health statistics, okay, and epidemiology. So this would be a two-part video lecture. The first part will be discussed. Will discuss or present about the topic health statistics or vital statistics, and the other one is about epidemiology. Okay, so please check or be updated on your LMS, and you will be informed also once this video lecture is already attached in your LMS, or we can show it or play it during our live Zoom session. Okay, so let's start. So, as I've mentioned in my introduction, our topic will be health statistics and epidemiology. Starting with health statistics or vital statistics. Okay. First, we are going to discuss what is the definition of statistics first. The epidemiology side will be discussed on the next part of this video lecture. Then, what are the different health indicators or vital statistics indicators, and what are their implications to a community? Then what are with the health indicators are the health events, and the last part is the legal mandates. So on epidemiology, we are going to elaborate it further when we tackle the topics covered by epidemiology. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so vital statistics is referring to the systematic study of the vital events such as births, illnesses or diseases, marriage, divorces and separation, and also death of a population. Okay, and when we talk about death, uh, on our topic, we commonly refer it to mortality, and when you say disease or illness, we will refer it to as a morbidity. Okay, so statistics of disease and death indicate the state of health of a community. Okay, it's not always positive, it's not always birth, it's not always wellness, but we also look at other events like diseases and deaths, because this also may indicate the state of health of a community and the success or failure of a health work. Okay, so meaning you can tell if your program, if your project, if your interventions are successful or not by these vital statistics, including morbidity or even mortality. Okay, so I pardon for some background noises. Please, I ask for your understanding, and I hope that this video has a clear audio to you. Okay, so statistics on population also, and the characteristics of the population, like example, the age brackets, the sex ratio, what else? Uh, top. morbidity cases, top mortality cases, and the rest of its characteristics are usually obtained from the NSO, okay? Especially if you're talking about a nationwide statistics. Okay, NSO is the former name of PSA. Okay, NSO for stands for um, National Statistics Office, which has the name PSA now, or Philippine Statistics Authority. Okay, so it changed its nomenclature. And births and deaths are registered in the office of its local civil registrar or the municipality or city. Okay, so there is a nationwide agency for our population statistics. There is also in every municipality or in every city. Okay, again, it's a local civil registrar or local civil registry in other references. Okay, and in other cities also, it is registered in a city health department. Okay, so it's either local civil registry or or city health departments. Okay, so you be aware of your own municipality, no? Especially if you need some documents referring to your population or your own personal use, like birth certificates, okay, marriage license. These are all important, and these are also affecting our um, vital events in a community. Then, what are the sources of data? So, we can have population census from the PSA, registration of vital data in our local civil registry or city health departments, health surveys commonly done by local or even national government or organizations like your PSA, okay, or in your own municipality, in your barangay, or in your areas, okay. So it depends uh, whoever is the organizer or the researcher. A health surveys and researches are other sources of data. Then rate. Okay, these are we are going to somewhat discuss the definition of terms or terms related to our discussion. And this is also presented in your LMS. Okay? So again, this would supplement your text presentation of lecture in our LMS. Okay, read, it refers to the relationship, okay, between a vital event. When you say vital event, it's the important event that is usually happening in a population or in a group, okay, and those persons exposed to the occurrence of the said event. Okay, we say said event, it's the vital event that I've mentioned earlier within a given area and during a specified unit of time or a certain period of time. Okay, this would be more appreciated or understood better when we are going to discuss already the different indicators. Okay, what are the different vital events? Okay, as I mentioned earlier, vital events usually refer to births, deaths, diseases or illnesses, okay, or even change of locality, okay, change of place, okay, which um, all of this affects the statistics, the population of a certain community. Okay, rate also is evident that the persons experiencing the event must come from the total population exposed to the risk of the same event. Okay, so again, rate is a term that shows the relationship between a vital event, a very important event, and those persons exposed to the occurrence of the said event. So when you say persons, it usually refers to a group, it refers to a population, the whole population, okay, or even a just a cohort, okay, which we are going to discuss later, or at risk population. Okay, and it is usually an event in a certain period of time in a certain place. And again, so it is evident that the persons experiencing the event must come from the total population exposed to the risk of the same event. Okay, so that is rate. Next is ratio. Okay, used to describe the relationship between two numerical quantities or measures of events without taking particular consideration to the time or place. Okay, so for example, ratio of a male and female in a population. Okay, so that is ratio. Okay, these quantities need not necessarily represent the same entities. Okay? Although the unit of measure must be the same for both numerator and denominator of the ratio. Because speaking of denominator and numerator, the discussions and the vital statistics that we are going to present in this video lecture will be presented in a formula. Okay, so there will be a bit of competition in this topic to get the results. Okay, to get the information, to get the data that we want, that we need. Okay, so we are going to discuss, we are going to present how to compute the necessary vital statistics. Okay, so again, when you say ratio, it is used to describe the relationship between two numerical quantities or measures of events without taking particular considerations to time or place. These quantities will not necessarily represent the same entities. Okay, so it means the two quantities, okay, or two groups may belong to different entities. Okay, so although the unit of measure must be the same for both numerator and denominator of the ratio. Okay, for example, the sex ratio. Okay, how many males are there compared to the females? Okay, as an example. Next term, we have crude or general rates. So when you say crude or a general rate or general, it refers to the living population. Okay, it means that an event is involving the whole population. Okay, what are these events? As an example, okay, as examples, we have births, we have deaths. Okay, so when you say birth as a crude rate or a general rate, meaning all of the population, which is obvious, uh, is involving the whole population. Okay, or it means that birth, okay, involves all population, death involves all population because everybody is born and everybody will be dying. Okay, so in that sense, it must be presumed that the population was exposed to the risk of occurrence of the event. Okay, and later during our presentation of the different formulas, you would notice that when you say crude or general rate, the denominator of the formula is usually the total population. Okay. So specific rate, okay, we have the general and we have the specific. Okay, specific rate is a relationship. The relationship is for a specific population class or a group. Okay, so it limits the occurrence of the event to the portion of the population definitely exposed to it. So comparing to your general rate or crude rate, specific is only for a specific or only for a group of people. Okay, it does not expose the whole population to the said event, to the said vital event. Only a group of population, only a class of population, only a portion of the population. Okay, so the events occurring to a specific group are related only to the affected segment of the population. Okay, affected segment, not all of the population. Next is mid-year population. Okay, mid-year population refers to the estimated population as of July 1 of a specified year. Okay, I repeat, mid-year population refers to the estimated population of of a place as of July 1 of a specified year. So we are taking consideration July 1 as the half of the year, as the mid date of the year. Okay, this also assumes that all indicators for the first 6 months of the year are equal throughout the year. Okay, so it means from January to June 30, the indicators, the statistics, the events are equal throughout the year. So the mid-year population represents the population for the whole year already. Okay, if you encounter such situations or problems like let's say computations, it is usually given in a scenario. Okay, the mid-year population. Then just additional terms, no? When you say birth, it's the expulsion from the mother of a fetus. Usually it should be alive. Okay? And birth generally is the beginning of life. Live birth, okay, the condition wherein the infant or at some point after birth breathes spontaneously or shows signs of life. So, madaling sabi is buhay siya nung naipanganak. Okay? Life birth. Then death, counterpart. Indications of death is, or when you say is death, it's a stop of life, the end of life. We'll talk about physical life, that aspect, cessation of life. Yeah. So indications of death is usually but not limited to total lack of response or no response at all, no muscle movement, no breathing, no pulses, no reflexes, no brain waves, and some other indications. So what are the uses of vital events? Why do we need to study this, especially in your CHN2 or in community health nursing 2? Okay, so it serves as an index or a measure of health condition. So you can say that a population or a community has a very good health condition, has a good condition, health condition, or bad or poor health condition by the use of vital statistics, because usually there is an international recommendation of standards of measure or index uh, for you to say that a country, a population, a community is of good condition. So it provides valuable clues to the nature of health services needed in the success of such activities. So as said, it provides clues, it provides you hints, it provides you necessary data, information for you to say that your health services is a success or even a failure if your programs are such, or you need such activities or programs. And vital statistics is an indispensable tool, meaning it's a very important one. You cannot disregard the purpose, the use, okay? And it is used in planning, implementation, and in evaluation of such health programs in certain population. So let's start the different indicators. And so let's start with fertility rates or population indicators. So when you say population indicators, it means these are indicators, these are statistics, these are events that is not only referring to population growth, but also the dynamics, the changes in the population. Okay, so when you say population or fertility rates, the first thing that comes into our mind is um, growth or increase in population in the number of people in a certain place in a country. Okay, but beyond that, we also um, try to study, okay, the dynamics, the movements, the changes in a certain population. For example, the increase or decrease in population, increase and decrease in what's this? In live births being born, okay? So, or even the fertility, okay? The fertility age of the certain group. So, of course, it's the women who is usually accounted for being fertile, okay, or having the capacity of fertility. And so they are also studied, okay. So yeah, so let's have the first fertility rate or population rate. Okay, so the first no rate, the first event, the first relationship. And so it's called crude birth rate. Okay, it's a measure, it's an index of one characteristic of a natural growth or increase in number or increase in population of a certain community or certain country. Okay, so crude birth rate is acronym as CBR. So the formula here is total number of live births registered in a given year divided by mid-year population times 1,000. Okay, times 1,000. Remember, also give particular attention to the, let's say, the constants, because they also change according to the formula, according to the statistic that is being studied or computed. Okay, so what is the importance of crude birth rate? It measures how fast people are added to the population, or even it's a useful measure of population growth. So, in other words, in simpler terms, it's used to measure the increase of a population. Okay? Even how fast the population is rising compared to the international standards or even national standards. Crude birth rate is affected by fertility, how fertile a population is, the marriage characteristics. Of course, when we talk about birth, it's only done by, should be, must be a married couple, okay, especially in our country. And another factor that affects crude birth rate is the sex and age composition. So, and even birth registration. When you say birth registration is how accurate the registrations are. How accurate are the data of registration in a certain census or a certain registry is. Okay, so ibig sabihin, the more accurate the registry is, the more accurate also the crude birth rate. Okay, so again, it is a crude rate because it involves whole population, and according to international standards, 45 live births or 45, yes, 45 per 1,000 live births is a high fertility. Then or more than 45, okay, more than or equal to 45 per 1,000 live births is considered to high fertility. On the other hand, less than or equal to 20 per 1,000 live births is considered low fertility. Okay, so that is crude birth rate. Next is GFR, or your general fertility rate. It measures, it's the measure of one characteristic of natural growth compared to the fertility age group. Okay, So the difference here is the persons involved in the rate. Okay, if you have observed the denominator earlier is the mid-year population or the total population. However, in our GFR or general fertility rate, the denominator of the formula is total population of fertility age group. So we are only referring to your fertility age group or fertile age group or the age of fertility in the Philippines. And in the Philippines, according to references, um, the age of fertility among women is usually 15 to 44 years old. There are other references also tell it's 13 to 44 years old. Okay, so that's your fertility, the average range of fertile women in the Philippines. Okay, 15 to 44 or 13 to 44 years old. Okay, this is more specific than CBR or crude birth rate, and because births are related to the segment of population that is deemed to be capable of giving birth. Okay, which are the women aging 15 to 44 years old. Okay. So high fertility rate is 200 live births when every 1,000 women, every 1,000 fertile women. So according to standards, that's already high, no? Kapag 200 and above. So the safest is, and sorry, the lowest, I mean the lower portion is 60 live births per 1,000 women. Okay, so the normal range, expected range should be from, let's say 61 to, let's say 70, 80 to 150 live births per 1,000 women. Yeah. So that's the general fertility rate. Then next, so from fertility or population rates, we proceed to mortality rates. So again, mortality refers to death. And why is it important to study or to include death in as a vital statistic? So when you say death, it's the most serious outcome of a morbidity. And ibig sabihin, it's the most serious complication, most serious result, most serious outcome of having a disease. It's like saying the cause of death of a person is this disease. Ano kinamatay niya dahil sa ganitong sakit. Okay, instead of saying, it's a natural death. Yun yung sinasabi, natural death because of old age. Okay? So, again, and it's in crude because everybody is affected. Everybody will be affected. Total population, it refers to total population. And crude birth rate or crude death rate rather has a formula total number of deaths registered in the given year divided by estimated population of the same year or your mid-year population times 1,000. Okay, so crude death rate is affected by age and sex of a population, environmental and occupational conditions, and also peace and order. Okay, and also peace and order. Okay, so these things affect crude death rate, but not limited to. Halimbawa, letter C, peace and order. Okay, doon, one time in the mid-2000, I think, or this second decade of the millennium 2000, um, I'm not sure if it's, I think it's Afghanistan. But um, one time they had the lowest, okay, longevity of life, especially among males in the world. Okay? I think it's only mid 30s, 30 years old, mid 30s of age. Ganun lang kahaba yung life expectancy nila. Okay, because of problems in peace order and order. Okay, during that time. And factors also, as I mentioned, other factors that is affecting crude death rate is what's this? We have environmental, occupational conditions, and also age and sex. Okay, meaning age is affecting death of a person. Sex is affecting the death of a person. Let's say there are some conditions that is putting a male at risk compared to a woman of dying at the same time. Ganon din, women is more at risk of dying compared to men. Like, for example, cancer. There are cancers attributed to males, cancer attributed to females, lifestyle attributed to males, to females. Yeah. And so that is crude death rate. Next is we have specific death rate. Okay, so in a specific death rate, again, it describes more accurately the risk of exposure of certain classes or groups to a particular diseases. Okay, again, it's not the whole population. Okay, just let me check my audio. Okay, so death or specific death rate is equal to deaths in a specific class or group registered in a year over estimated population same year times 100,000. Okay, so the rates of dying in specific population or groups, again, it does not involve the whole population. I mean whole death. Okay, the total number of deaths. It's only specific death rate. Example, deaths exclusively or specifically for ages, let's say 40 to 50 years old. That's a specific death rate. Okay. Uh, I think after this slide, we are going to somewhat present the specific death rates. Okay, so it can be according to age, according to sex, according to occupation. I mean the factors affecting specific death rate, even education, exposure to risk factors. Okay, so those factors affects a specific death rate. And for example, age is specific death rate, and number of deaths in a specific age group in a given year divided by estimated population of the same age group. And we have also sex specific death rate. Okay, as I mentioned, risk of dying for or death number of deaths for males, for females, okay, for age group, certain age bracket, okay, or population groups, okay, so that is age specific death rate and sex specific death rate. Cause specific death rate, okay, meaning it's the cause of death. Okay, you can cluster the causes of death compared to crude death rate. For example, who are those people who died because of heart attack, people who died because of cancer, people who died because of COVID-19. Okay, so that's your cause specific death rate. So it's equal to number of deaths of a certain group because of a certain cause in a given year divided by estimated population of the same year times 100,000. Okay, so again, it's the rate of dying due to causes that makes it a specific rate. But it is still a rate because it involves your mid-year population. Likewise, in your age specific and sex specific. Okay, it's a specific because it pertains to a certain cause, it's a certain disease, I mean a certain age, a certain sex, but still a rate because it involves the whole population or mid-year population. Okay, so when you say cause is specific death rate, what is the implication of this? It can identify the greatest threat to the survival of of the population. Okay, the greatest threat. You can identify the greatest threat. You can identify the greatest risk of dying of a certain population. You might say, um, so we have high cases of hypertension. Okay, so you can say that hypertension is a great threat in our community because we already had this number of people dying because of hypertension and its complications. Okay, so again, it identifies the greatest threat, the greatest risk of of threat to the survival of a certain community. Okay, so what are the factors affecting cause is specific death rate? One is we have completeness or even accuracy of death registration. Okay, the more accurate, the registration is, the more accurate the cause of specific death rate is. Then composition of the population and even the accuracy of cause. Meaning, are you sure that the person died because of this cause, because of this event, because of this incident? Just like what we are having right now. Are you sure that the person died of COVID-19? Okay? So, you should be accurate. Okay. Next is infant mortality rate or IMR. Okay, infant mortality rate, it measures the risk of dying during the first year of life. Okay, so first year, 0 to 12 months of life. A good index of the general health condition of a community. Sorry, it's a good index or a good measure of the general health condition of a community since it reflects the changes in the environmental and medical condition of the community. Okay, even though it measures death, it's still a very good index. Okay, so why is it a very good measure? It's a good index. So because since if a community has a high infant mortality rate, it means there is a low level of health standard. Okay, if the community has a low infant mortality rate, it means it has high levels of health standards. And usually this is affected by poor maternal health and child health care services, malnutrition, poor environmental sanitation, deficient health service delivery. Okay? And according to standards, international standards, 200 deaths under 1 year of age. Okay? Divide or for 100 for 1,000 live births is already a very severe environmental condition. Okay? So it should be less than, way less than 200. Okay. So again, IMR is equal to total number of deaths under 1 year of age in a given year divided by total number of live births in the same year times 1,000. Okay, so that is your infant mortality rate. Next is fetal death rate from an infant to a fetus. Okay? So, fetal death rate measures pregnancy wastage. So, parang pagkasayang ng pagbubuntis. Kasi fetus pa namatay na. And death of the product of conception occurs prior to its complete expulsion, irrespective of duration of pregnancy. So it can be 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, okay, for as long as um, still a product of conception and prior to the expulsion. Okay, so total number of fetal deaths in a given year divided by total number of live births in the same year times 1,000. That is your fetal death rate. Well, I know you can relate to this because you just finished your maternal child and child nursing 1 and 2. Okay, you know what are the conditions and diseases that can be or that can affect a certain pregnant woman. So from infant, we discuss fetus. Now we're presenting neonates. Okay, so neonatal death rate. It measures, or NDR, it measures the risk of dying the first month of life. In the first month of life, or in references, it refers to the first 28 days of life, the first 4 weeks of life. It may serve as an index or measure of the effects of prenatal care and obstetrical management on the newborn. Okay, so if there is high neonatal death rate, there is poor prenatal care and poor obstetrical management. So NDR is equal to number of deaths under 28 days of age in a given year divided by total number of live births in the same year times 1000. It refers to your other factors. It refers to prenatal or genetic factors, which later years are also influenced by environmental and nutritional factors. So, I mean, neonatal death rate is usually referring to genetic factors, even prenatal. But for the infant death rate or mortality rate, this is usually later years, so it may be influenced by environmental and nutritional factors. Okay. Next is maternal mortality rate. So when you say maternal mortality rate, we're referring to the pregnant women. Okay. Yeah. Even postpartum women. So when you say maternal mortality rate, it measures the risk of dying from causes related to pregnancy. So it is clear, okay? The death should be related to pregnancy, related to childbirth, and puerperium. Other deaths not related of a pregnant woman not related to pregnancy is not counted under maternal mortality rate. For example, okay, the, the pregnant woman met an accident, vehicular accident, and she died. Okay, so that's not included in the maternal mortality rate. Okay, MMR is equal to number of deaths from maternal causes divided by total number of live births times 1000. Okay, SARS Index. Okay, SARS Index is a measure for the risk of dying for 50 years old and above, okay, and usually expressed in percentage, and it's a index of health, a very good index of health also. It's directly proportional, directly related to the health status, meaning if you have high SWAROPS index, you have a very good health status in the community. Meaning, persons dying in that community is usually 50 years old and above, 60 years old and above. Okay? There is only a minimal cases of people dying below 50 years old. Okay? Or even below 60 years old. Yeah. So number of deaths of 50 years old and above divided by estimated population of the same year times 100. Okay, so to compare it to your infant mortality rate, for infant mortality rate, if it is high, you have a poor health status. If it's low, okay, you have a very good health status. On the other hand, for SWAROPS index, if you have high SWAROPS index, the health status is good. If the SWAROPS index is low, you have a poor health status in the community. Okay, so that's a situation, a picture of its implications. Proportionate mortality rate, or PMR. It shows the numerical relationship between deaths from a cause, age, and etc. So PMR is equal to the number of registered deaths from a specific cause over number of registered deaths from all causes. Okay. So for example, you are going to get all registered deaths from all causes. Then you are going to separate, example, cancer. You separate, example, hypertension. Okay, so it is usually expressed in percentage. Okay, so for example, it's somewhat similar with your crude death rate, but we are talking about proportion here of a certain death among all the number of deaths. Example, number of deaths. All the total number of deaths is 100%. Then you'd say out of that 100%, out of all of those cases of death, how many percent is from COVID-19? Okay, so you are going to compute it. Okay, so that is your proportionate mortality rate. Now let's proceed to case fatality ratio, or CAFR. Um, this one is measured because it's a good index of killing power of the disease. Okay, so it means the higher the CFR, okay, the more fatal the disease is. Okay, the lower the CFR, or the case fatality ratio, the less fatal the disease is. Okay, it is influenced by incomplete reporting and poor morbidity data. Okay, so CFR is equal to number of registered deaths from a specific disease divided by number of registered cases from a specific disease times 100, and it will be expressed into percentage also. Again, high CFR means more fatal disease, and usually the registrations of deaths come from hospital or the community. Okay, and hospital documents usually will provide a higher case fatality ratio than community, because the risk of dying in the hospital is really more severe compared to the community setting. Ibig sabihin kaya binadala sa hospital pag malala na, pag fatal na, and it will be recorded there compared to your hospital. Compared to the community, although all cases, as we all know, comes from the community. Okay? So we're talking about the risk of dying among diseases afflicted by a particular disease. Next. Okay, so we have discussed about population rates or fertility rates, then we proceeded to mortality rates, and now we are going to discuss the diseases or your morbidity rates. So morbidity indicators. Okay, so usually you're going to ask, what are the health problems in our area? What are diseases common in our area? How many cases do we have for a certain disease in this area, in this community? So these are all usually based on disease-specific incidence or prevalence of common and severe diseases. Okay, so it means morbidity rates will depend on the prevalence, will depend on the occurrence, the frequency of occurrence of a certain disease or all diseases. Uh, for example, how many malaria cases do we have? How many dengue cases do we have? How many diarrheal diseases do we have? Okay, even diabetes or cardiovascular diseases. Okay. So incidence rates. First of the morbidity cases, incidence rate. From the word incidence, it measures the number of new cases. episodes or events occurring over a specified period of time, commonly a year, commonly in a certain population or at risk population. Again, it refers to the number of new cases, and as shown in the formula. It measures the frequency of occurrence of the phenomenon or the disease during a given period of time and deals only with new cases. Number of new cases of a particular disease in a specified time divided by estimated population of the same year or your mid-year population times 100,000. Okay? There are two terms related here. We have cohort. Okay, it's a group of people with common defining characteristics. That is a cohort. Because cohort or cohorts or group with the same characteristics will tend to give you the same incidence of diseases. For example, let's say 40 years old, all 40 years old will give the same characteristics. All senior citizens 60 years old and above will give the same incidence. Okay? All toddlers will give the same characteristics of an incident. So that is a cohort and they should be considered also in incidence rate computations. Okay, or you may consider them as a factor why this is happening. So, for example, okay, we have high osteoporosis cases because we have high number of our cohort of senior citizens. Okay, so on the other hand, we say at risk population, these are group free of the disease but have the potential to develop it. Okay, let's say for example, okay, we're having what's this? Increasing number of hypertension because the at risk population in our place is also increasing. Okay, and so it is best indicator of whether a condition is increasing, decreasing, or remains the same. This incidence rate, and also it's best to measure the effectiveness, okay, evaluating the effectiveness of health interventions. Okay, so that's your incidence rate. Next is attack rate. Okay, attack rate is more accurate. Okay, more accurate measure of the risk of exposure. It's useful in epidemiological investigations. So when you say attack rate is the refinement of incidence rate. Okay, a refinement of incidence rate. It's more accurate than incidence rate. Okay? Attack rate is equal to the number of persons acquiring the disease in a given period of time times divided by number of exposed people to the same disease in the same time times 100. Okay, that is attack rate. Next is prevalence rate. Prevalence rate is a measure of the proportion of the population which exhibits a particular disease at a given particular time. Okay, as compared to incidence rate, prevalence rate measures or involves the number of cases old and new. Okay, diba? Dun sa incidences usually deals only with new cases. But for prevalence rate, it involves the number of new and old cases of certain disease at a given time and the total number of persons examined times 100. Okay, so that is the first part of this video lecture, which is about vital statistics. Okay, so going back to the uh, lessons or objectives or topics to be targeted in this video lecture, we have finished a definition of statistics, health indicators and the implications, the vital health events related to the indicators, and next video lecture we are going to discuss epidemiology and its concepts together with outbreaks, together with investigations of diseases, and the legal mandates related to health statistics and epidemiology. Okay, so I hope everything went clear. If you have any questions, just put it in our discussion forum uploaded after this video lecture. Thank you, BSN3.